Hello and welcome back to No Bullshit. Today we return to talking about the leading and only Democratic presidential candidate left, former Vice President Joe Biden. He recently received what should have been a big endorsement for him, coming from the president he served under for 8 years, none other than Barack Hussein Obama. But the emphasis here really should be on the should have been big, because in light of how late and lackluster this endorsement was delivered, many are questioning whether it's actually going to help Joe. In fact, one could argue it could hurt him, because the fact that Obama waited this long kind of shows he really didn't have much faith in his former VP. I mean, Obama has had over a year of Joe Biden campaigning to step up, and he waited until the last minute to jump in like this. Yes, instead of Barack giving Joe a nice boost early on, like he should have, well, Barry instead waited until the very last moment when there's literally no one else left to endorse anyway. So of course he's going to endorse Biden now, considering there's no other options. Yes, and many think Obama waited until there was no one else left because it seems pretty obvious he didn't want to endorse Joe Biden beforehand at all, because he likely knew Biden would fail and be an embarrassing, terrible decision. And Joe getting this far now is really mostly due to the other candidates being so bad, and it has very little to do with Joe being particularly good himself. Regardless of all that though, Obama has finally endorsed Biden anyway, and he's done so in the form of posting a video on his Twitter. We're going to go over that video and some reactions to it today, and more. All of the Obama talk and the Joe Biden nonsense is going to get spelled out soon, but first, let's take a quick half minute to check out our loyal sponsors at preparewithnobs.com. One of the most frightening and terrible consequences of this ongoing panic is lines developing at stores where people are trying to buy food. Some places are even running out of the most basic of products like certain meats, waters, and other essential items. That's why I say you should visit preparewithnobs.com and take the time to order yourself some long-term storage foods that will not only help you in a pinch, but they could also save your life in the long run. Can't hurt to have some extra food stored in your garage, basement, or in a closet somewhere, and this food will keep for a very long time too, many years, so you'll know you always have a backup. So visit preparewithnobs.com and order yourself some today, and get in there quick because the orders are backed up right now, so you're going to want to get in line and sign up now while you still can. Great, now let's jump into that video we were talking about. Obama posted this tweet and video a few days ago saying, "I'm proud to endorse my friend Joe Biden for President of the United States. Let's go." And then there's this clip attached to it below. It's a pretty long watch though, clocking in at a very lengthy 12 minutes and 12 seconds. And with Obama's boring and monotonous voice and presentation style, that means this thing's going to get dull and really old fast. Luckily, I can pause things and interject when we need to call things out and rub our eyes and make sure we're not falling asleep. May need a cup of joe or a splash of water on my face to get through all of this one. So without further ado, let's go ahead and check this video out and see what the former president has to say about Joe.
These aren't normal times. As we all manage our way through a pandemic unlike anything we've seen in a century, Michelle and I hope that you and your families are safe and well. If you've lost somebody to this virus, or if someone in your life is sick, or if you're one of the millions suffering economic hardship,
Oh yeah, Barry, I'm suffering all right. Not only is this crisis hitting us all real hard, but we now have to sit here and listen to this former president prattle on about the health scare. Sure, what he's saying is mostly true too, and it's good to acknowledge the people and hard times we're going through, but I also think talk is cheap, and since this is the first I've heard from Obama saying anything about this, well, I'm going to assume he's not really doing much other than talking about it. Other than this lip service and blaming things on the current President Trump, the Democrats really have done very little to help. Actually, you could argue they've made things worse in a lot of ways too. One example of that would be how the left was dragging their feet on signing that stimulus bill a few weeks back. Also, they could squeeze in raises for themselves and other unnecessary and unrelated socialist-like policies. So yeah, between that and how the liberals constantly politicize this thing, like what's happening with this Obama video right in front of our faces, well, I would say they're doing a terrible job of handling things. In addition, we're already 30 seconds into this so-called endorsement video and Obama hasn't even mentioned Biden yet. Rather odd. It's like Obama is making this all about him, which isn't too surprising, and he's certainly trying to thank everyone and give condolences as a way to virtue signal and raise his own status, thinking himself to be this very nice guy and philanthropist type person, when really he's not.
Because now's the time for all of us to help where we can and to be there for each other, as neighbors, as co-workers, and as fellow citizens. In fact, over the past weeks, we've seen plenty of examples of the kind of courage, kindness, and selflessness that we're going to need to get through one of the most difficult times in our history. Michelle and I have been amazed at the incredible bravery of our medical professionals.
You mean these medical professionals? The ones constantly singing and dancing on TikTok? Funny how we've seen tons of videos of that, but I have yet to see any videos of hospitals being packed and strapped and full of people dying. And that's the picture the left and the mainstream media are painting here, and even President Obama in this video is playing into it right now. That's why he's making this overly long, soft-spoken, and serious intro, acting like he's still president and the country's falling apart underneath him. We're not though. We're dealing with a terrible issue, sure, which came from our foreign adversary, but we're figuring it out quickly and handling the issues in the best ways we can, and usually the best ways possible. And aside from this fear-mongering, the other part I found interesting here in this video was, it seemed like Obama was going to lead into saying Biden was showing great strength during this crisis, and he may still get to Joe eventually, but I found it rather funny that he instead names healthcare workers first, especially after they've been sort of exposed as not being as heroic as we all thought, like in these TikTok videos. So now we're about 1 minute into Obama's speech and we still haven't heard a peep about Biden. So let's see how long it takes for old Barry to mention Joe and bring him up.
The kind of leadership that's guided by knowledge and experience, honesty and humility, empathy and grace. That kind of leadership doesn't just belong in our state capitals and mayor's offices. It belongs in the White House. And that's why I'm so proud to endorse Joe Biden for President of the United States.
Yikes, almost 2 minutes in before the former president even mentions the candidate he's supposed to be endorsing here. I mean, I get that the intro can help and all, but I also think this video should have begun with him endorsing Biden in the very first line. That's the whole point and why we're here. And not only is Obama losing us with this drawn out intro, but it's also overly long, dramatic, and wordy and just plain unnecessary. I mean, I get he was going for some sort of dramatic lead up, but it also doesn't make sense and is too drawn out. Like the way he talks, it's like Obama is pretending we don't have a president right now or leader, but we do. Trump has been in office for 4 years, dude, and he's been killing it and handling shit pretty well. Pretty good, if you ask me. And before this whole crisis ruined everything, at a very convenient time for Democrats, by the way, but before this, our country and economy was unquestionably good and strong and great, and our security has been better too. Some might even say the many years of bad U.S. policies before Trump, like the 8 years of Obama kissing China's ass, and Biden and his sons making millions there and shady deals too. Well, if that hadn't been there and happening, and if that hadn't lubed up China so well for nearly a decade, well, then the Middle Kingdom, the blood-red communist shithole nation, well, if that hadn't happened, they wouldn't be screwing us so hard right now.
Choosing Joe to be my vice president was one of the best decisions I ever made, and he became a close friend. And I believe Joe has all the qualities we need in a president right now. He's someone whose own life has taught him how to persevere, how to bounce back when you've been knocked down.
And Joe has certainly been knocked down a lot recently too, but admittedly, he does attempt to bounce back each time. And as the British rock band Shambawamba would say, Joe gets knocked down, but he gets up again, and you ain't never gonna keep him down. But just because Joe Biden gets up after stumbling, that doesn't mean he gets excused for all that stumbling. The guy is clearly showing signs of aging, fatigue, loss of memory and clarity, and slow reaction times too. And I suspect if it weren't for him being propped up as a politician and the Democrats' last desperate chance at winning here, well, if Joe didn't have this whole establishment behind him, he would surely be in some kind of nursing home with 24-hour care by now. The guy is losing it, and although he does seem to keep getting back up after falling, he is still falling often, a lot, and one day soon he won't be getting back up ever again. Now, I would of course never wish for that upon anyone, and anyone rational wouldn't want that of their opponents, but of course, you can't deny that Joe is aging. He's pushing 80, and he doesn't look particularly healthy either, so his degrading state is just a sign that his eventual downfall is coming soon.
When Joe talks with parents who've lost their jobs, we hear the son of a man who once knew the pain of having to tell his children that he'd lost his. When Joe talks about opportunity for our kids, we hear the young father who took the train home each night so he could tuck his children into bed.
Okay, well, here's where I have to point out how this video pretty much has no substance at all. It's just a shallow attempt at striking a chord with people's hearts and emotions. There's no discussion about policies, no facts or plans or real premises at all. Basically, Barack just set the stage up by talking all doom and gloom for the first 2 minutes, and then now he's endorsing Biden by saying he had a father and was a good father as well. That's also kind of ironic coming from President Obama since, he didn't actually have a father himself. Or rather, his father was not a very big part of his life, to say the least, if he was even part of it much at all. So should we really trust the word of a fatherless man when he's trying to tell us about how other fathers are? Because I really don't think so. It would be like asking someone who's allergic to peanuts what a Reese's peanut butter cup tastes like. Sure, they could guess and assume, and they might even have some stories or information about it showing it's good from other sources, but since they've never actually had one due to their situation, they will never really know, despite them thinking they do sometimes.
When Joe talks to families who've lost a hero, we hear another parent of an American veteran, a kindred spirit, somebody whose faith has endured the hardest loss there is.
Ah yes, Joe Biden is the father of a veteran, and that's typically a very honorable thing, but I'm not sure you get to brag about it when one of your sons was dishonorably discharged from the Navy, like what happened with Joe's son Hunter. In fact, I think you're going to regret bringing up Biden's family at all after I'm done spelling all their details out, because not only are we going to go over how dysfunctional the Bidens are, but also we're going to show Joe is not necessarily the best father. Another point Barry Obama was trying to make earlier. You see, first, let's finish Hunter Biden's story. In addition to Hunter being discharged from the Navy for failing a drug test, which means he was on something, well, Hunter also divorced the mother of his 3 children, which then led to him publicly dating the widow of his own dead brother. That's right, Joe's other son, Beau Biden, died tragically from cancer in 2015, and just a short year later in 2016, and Hunter Biden was dating his dead brother's widow. Not kidding, it's pretty messed up. And then finally, about Hunter, he also became notorious last year when people discovered he's got a shady, high-paying job at a private investment fund in China of all places. And he's working a job he's never had experience with at all. And sure, Hunter may have resigned from that position back in October when his father's campaign really started to take off, but damn, that's a really bad look for sure, especially with everything going on in the world today. I know I wouldn't want the father of a Chinese ally who also has China's interests at mind. Well, I wouldn't want them in our White House at all, ever, especially right now. Let alone should we be considering letting this Biden family take the reins of our country at all, period. These guys can barely keep a marriage together. Joe can't form coherent sentences, and Hunter is a drug addict and serial womanizer. So yeah, I think we can clearly see why Obama waited so long to make this endorsement of Joe and his Biden family, which now seems late and forced and ill-equipped to properly present them in a positive way. And also the way Obama uses the platitudes and vague words and emotion here in his video, well, it shows he doesn't really have any actual concrete good things to say about Joe B. That's why he just fearmongers things, pretends the Bidens are good people who care about veterans and shit, and then he tries to pass that off as a legitimate supporting endorsement style video, when really he's just giving Joe this endorsement because Barack is obligated to give it to him. Joe did give Barry O 8 years of VP service and backup, so although Barack waited and pushed this off for as long as he could, it still had to happen eventually because the two had a sort of quid pro quo setup. What do you guys think? Is this Obama endorsement very convincing to you? Will it help Joe Biden's election bid? Or does he still not stand a chance against President Trump either way? Comment your thoughts on everything below, and thanks for watching No Bullshit. Hit that like button to help support this channel, and we'll see y'all next time.